Did you know that you could use shutter speed to get rid of flicker so that you don't have to deal with it in post? Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about shutter speed, specifically a useful tool in Canon cinema cameras that can help save you a ton of time in post and money so that you don't have to spend money on plugins that can help you alleviate or try to manage or deal with flicker. Now, before we get into that, I want to say that the rules apply, right? If you want a cinematic image, you should be at 2 times your frame rate. So if you're shooting 24p, you should be at 1/48th shutter. If you're shooting at 60p, you should double that to 120. So 1/120th shutter speed so that you can keep that same cinematic motion blur. But what happens if you are working on a narrative and say you're outdoors with streetlights, and sometimes some of these different streetlights use different frequencies? Or what if you're a corporate video producer or shooter and you're actually going into an office where they have some sort of LED light or some sort of display in the background and that's flickering? How do you fix it? Well, the motion blur is going to play the biggest role where there is significant amount of motion. If you're doing a sit-down talking head interview like I'm doing right now, motion blur is not as big of an issue because I'm not doing karate in front of you, right? I'm also not moving about too much because I'm in a fixed position with a microphone in a very specific spot to capture my voice. So if you're in that scenario and something in the background is flickering, you are able to tweak that shutter speed so that you don't have to worry about or fix it in post. Now, if you're a DSLR shooter, you really only have one way of dealing with that, and that's the actual shutter speed. And to make sure that you get rid of the flicker, you need to be able to see the flicker. And sometimes on DSLR cameras, especially the displays right in the back, it's difficult to see whether something is or isn't flickering. So that's when having an external monitor comes in really handy. But essentially what you need to do is you need to bump up your shutter speed so that it gets in sync with whatever the light source or that flicker source is in the background. The Canon cinema line of cameras has multiple ways that you can actually adjust that shutter. You can do it the traditional way, just like on DSLRs, by adjusting your shutter speed, and you have the option of going in 1/3 or 1/4 stops. You can also go with a shutter angle instead of shutter speed. And of course, 180 is that ideal motion blur for cinematic images when you're shooting at 24p. So I say that because the 180 shutter angle does not apply if you're shooting at 60p. There are 2 other modes on the Canon cinema line of cameras: clear scan and slow shutter. When you use clear scan, the camera will actually take a look at your scene, identify the flicker, and automatically sync up your shutter to completely eliminate that flicker. It's a very powerful tool and one worth looking into, specifically if you're doing, like I said, interview talking head scenarios with things in the background. That would be my first choice to get rid of the flicker. When you use the slow shutter speed mode on the Canon cinema line of cameras, you're effectively starting at the halfway point of your shutter speed. So if you're shooting at 24p and your shutter was at 1/48th, you switch down to the slow mode, it will actually bring the shutter speed down to 24. Now, why would you want to do that? There's really only one reason, and I have never actually used it. The main reason is that if you're in a really low light setting where you are not interested in bumping up the ISO beyond whatever your comfort level is, you can actually use the slow shutter speed mode to get more light into your sensor and get a better exposure on your image. Again, I haven't been in that situation primarily because I shoot corporate and commercial work, which really means everything is being lit. So to recap, if you're able to shoot on a camera that offers clear scan as an option, that is the easiest and fastest tool that you can use in camera to deal with flicker, any kind of flicker. It doesn't matter if it's indoors, if it's from a monitor, if it's from LED lights, or depending on where you're at shooting in the world, you might get some flicker from the street lights. That will completely eliminate the flicker and it will save your shots. I hope you guys found the information useful. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and do let me know if you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Until next time, I'm Carlos Quintero from Media IQ, helping you compete in today's web economy. Thanks for watching.